Hi and welcome to another Create Today video. I'm Designer Jen Gallacher and these videos are hosted by Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine. And the layout that I'm going to create today is going to be using this fun Stampin' Up! Sewing collection. And you can see that it has the popular navy blue and coral peach in this collection. Like I said, it does have sewing elements in it. It is great for feminine pages about sewing, but it also works if you use it for a masculine page by simply selecting the papers that are more masculine in nature. So fun tone on tone, some more designer shapes for fussy cutting, a lot of things that you can work with. I will be bringing in a variety of tools from Stampin' Up, including some punches and some other things, as well as this fun stamp set, which is called the Sweet Essentials set. So let's go ahead and make a layout based on this particular set of pattern papers. So we're going to start with a background of cream cardstock, and how I choose between cream and white cardstock is that I look at the base of the pattern paper that I'm using, and this Stampin' Up! Pattern paper has a cream background. So if I were to put this pattern paper on white cardstock, it would pop out a little bit more than I want it to. Now if you're looking for a high contrast look, then that is a great way to go, but I did try to pick, as you can see, the cream that matched both this blue chevron and this green diagonal stripe, and so it just looks a little bit more cohesive. For this top piece I used a die cut, and it's hard to see and it has some washi tape. That's how I hold the things in place, but it is a file folder die cut. You could also hand cut this piece if you want. The text on this particular piece is going to be upside down. On the pattern paper, the text runs multiple directions. So you have the option of cutting where you want. I wasn't worried about the text being a little bit upside down. I'm using my Xyron Mega Runner to place the pattern paper on the layout. And then I'm going to start layering with a couple of different sheets of the pattern paper. So first we'll start with the blue chevron, and I'm going to trim it down a little bit. When I'm creating this layout, I wanted the elements to run to the left, or rather run to the right side of the page. I wanted them to be right up to the edge. So I placed all of my pieces before starting right up to the edge, and then we can just easily place them. Now the nice thing about Stampin' Up! Is that they match all of their pattern papers to their existing ink colors. So they have cardstock in the same colors, they have the colors in matching embellishments, so you have lots of different options for adding matching colors to your page. We'll go ahead and cut this end into a pennant. You can leave them straight as well. We'll just overlap this. And then from the pattern paper that had all of the different measuring tapes, now you'll notice that some run a little bit more diagonally and some run completely horizontal. Just by using the grid lines on my paper cutter, I cut this green strip, and I'm going to leave this at 12 by 12 because I want to show you a little technique that you can do. And that is you can pleat and accordion fold your paper just to give it a little bit of a dimension. And then you can also machine stitch through it if you so desire. You can adjust the pleats so that they don't quite overlap. But just like you would pleat a ribbon, you can do this with paper. And to hold it in place, I'm simply going to use a standard size stapler and treat that staple as an embellishment. So you can see I've just stapled the end. So it gives a little bit of a crinkled look. And then you'll run adhesive along the whole strip. For this bumpier section, you could use a glue dot or something that's a little bit more strong, but it just, again, creates just a little bit of a fun adhesive. And then I want to create a little bit of a pennant shape for this one as well, make it a little more interesting than just squared off. And I can just trim off the extra by cutting a triangle from the ends of this piece. So this is what it looks like close up. Some additional embellishments that I'm going to add is I've taken a doily, and to save some of the extra pieces so I'm not wasting, I'm cutting it, cut 1/3 off the top, and then I'll use the other 2/3 on the bottom, and I'm barely going to tuck that in. Make sure that you don't cover your stapled area. From the Little Yellow Bicycle collection are several of these fun cork pieces, and I'm going to add them to this page because I like a little bit of texture. And again, you can see that I've pre-cut it so that only part of it shows. This does not have adhesive, so you will need to add some adhesive to the back of it. Some manufacturers do have adhesive on the back. Then Stampin' Up! Has their own set of tools, and they partner with great companies to make really long-lasting tools. And I used this fun punch. It's a great general punch, and I punched out of the blue and coral dot pattern paper, and I punched 3 of them. And what I want to do is I'm going to layer 1 with the dot up, 1 with the blue grid up, and 1 with the dot facing up. Make sure they're perfectly aligned, and then I'm going to staple down the center of the hearts, and then I'm going to accordion fold them. Let's staple that again. But I'm going to accordion fold them down the center. So what I'll do is I'll take the first layer and I'll fold it up, fold it right around that staple, and I'll fold the second one, and then I usually fold the last one backwards just to give it a little bit of dimension. So it makes it just a little bit fatter, and then I will add some glue dots on the back. And that is going to go on the cork semicircle, half circle, and slightly overlap that green diagonal stripe as well. Now to the cork, I'm going to add some pins in that same coral peach, and you can stick them right into the cork, and it's just thin enough that it will allow you to do that. I usually set 1 high and 1 low. I'm going to add a smaller cork piece, and I don't know if you can tell in the video, but it is a pinked circle. And you could also punch these or die cut these depending on how thick the cork is, using a manual die cut machine or a very strong tool. And then I'm going to add just a little punched heart. And this is a little punch that you can use, and I will add that to the layout as well. So I'm doing a large heart and a small heart. You could also staple through the center of this if you so desire. You can do this beforehand, or depending on the reach of your stapler, you can do this afterwards. And you'll see that I'm bringing in different metallic elements, the pins, the stapler, and we're going to add some silver sequins later. And then just fold up that little heart to give it some dimension. Now for the photography part of the layout, I'm going to be using the same dark blue pattern paper from the top, but it has a houndstooth on the back. And we'll go ahead and adhere this to the bottom. And you'll notice that as I place my layers down, I'm leaving a little bit of a gap. Then at the bottom, again, I'm going to use a Stampin' Up! Tool, and this one is a border punch, and it's a great notebook punch, and this punch has lasted me a very long time. Like I said, very high quality tools. Just keep punching it. What you do is you match the original pattern with the little guide, and then you punch the next few. So as you place it in so it matches the one on the end, and continue to punch. And they do have longer border punches to choose from, so several different tools. They have punches and die cut shapes and things to work with their stamp sets, so you have a lot of options. And then I will simply trim off the extra, and then I'm going to use my fingers to kind of distress this edge a little bit. Just like I gave some dimension to those hearts, I'm doing the same thing with this border punch. And then we'll adhere it at the bottom of this blue houndstooth pattern paper. And we'll tuck it underneath just a little bit. And you can continue to distress it a little more if you so desire. You could even rip off some of those just like you would if you really ripped it out of a notebook. Then at the bottom, I'm going to use the rest of that doily. Now doilies are fragile, so do be careful when adding adhesive. I typically only put it around the solid part, so that nothing happens to the doily. And again, if you need to trim off some of the doily so it fits, that works. The rest of that pinked circle from Little Yellow Bicycle will go underneath that. And then I'm adding those silver sequins. You can machine stitch these, which would be a fun technique to use with paper that is sewing based. I like to use glue dots, and I'll use a glue dot the size about of the sequin or slightly smaller. Glue dots work great. Wet adhesive would also work as well. The photo is a 5" by about 8.5 inches wide, and I did print this at home. If you want to use a large photo, then what you can do is take an 8x10 photo and you can cut it down so that it matches the width that you're using, and then you can mount it on white cardstock. So if you don't print at home, that's the way that you could do this. Or you can use more than one photo. You could use multiple 4x6 photos. The journaling I printed on craft cardstock, and I knew that I wanted to fill this white space on the photo. So first I'm going to cut this in a pennant to match the strips at the top, and then I'm going to ink the edges with some brown stamping ink. And then I will go ahead and adhere this to the photo, just directly on top of the photo. So this is a great way to fill up some of that white space that you sometimes have. One of the tools that I showed you at the beginning was this hexagon, and I used it to punch out some of the pattern paper, and I'll simply adhere these. I've used this previously. I try to use my tools as often as possible, and I keep them handy in a drawer next to my desk so that I can easily pull out and use any tool that I want. That ensures that I get the most out of the tools that I've purchased. And you just put them back in a puzzle so that there's a little bit of a gap between each of them, but that you can see that I've kind of matched up the grid. To the bottom of this cork, I'm going to add a coral pink button tied with white twine, adding a little bit of texture, and then you can trim off the extra twine. To the side, I'm taking a label shape and I'm going to staple it to the edge of this pattern paper to bring some of that solid green from the cardstock I used, as well as the long measuring tape. Simply staple it. When I use an object like a stapler, I try to use it more than once on my layout so that it makes sense. Now let's go ahead and do some stamping. And I want to show you how these stamp kits come. So when you first open up these boxes, you'll notice that there are blocks of wood, there are the rubber stamps, and then there are stickers for the stamps. And what you do is you peel them off the rubber backing, and you pick a stamp block that is the same size as the stamp you're going to use, and they've cut these. And I try to make the stamp as straight as possible. Then on the other side, you want to make sure that your sticker goes the same direction. So when I turn this over, the F is going to move to this side, and the word will read like this. So you want to make sure that your sticker goes right on top. So they've provided you everything you need to put the stamps together. You simply just need to take a few seconds and put it together. Like I mentioned before, they do match the ink to the pattern paper and the cardstock. This is called Old Olive, and it's one of my favorite greens from Stampin' Up. And I'm going to use some of this leftover craft cardstock to create a word strip. And then you can use a paper trimmer or trim it down yourself if you have good steady hands. And we'll use this on one of the labels that I've already created. There's the die cut label as well as a punched label. You can add glue dots or dot runner adhesive. And then we'll add it to this label on the left. To the photo, I'm going to add some craft photo corners just to bring in that color of craft a little bit more. You can take craft corners like this, or white ones, and you can add ink to the edges of them. So take your favorite Stampin' Up! Ink to a white photo corner and make it any color that you want. You are not stuck with the color of embellishments. Many times you can manipulate them and use them how you want. Let's go ahead and add a title to the layout, and to do that I'm going to use some white fabric stickers. Again, these are from Little Yellow Bicycle. You could also use stamps from Stampin' Up! To create the same effect. But these have both uppercase and lowercase, and I'm going to spell out the word amazing. And usually when I do that, if I know the title is going to run all the way to the end, I will start with the lowercase first and the far right letter in the title. And I don't place them completely down. I kind of leave them up in case I change my mind, or, and it's been known to happen, I misspell something. And you can combine uppercase and lowercase letters for interesting titles, or you can just do all lowercase, all uppercase. So the biggest thing is that you make sure that you spell your word correctly. And we're going to go ahead and use an uppercase Z just to mix it up. And you want to make sure that whatever title you pick, you have enough of the letter sticker to do that. I have completely gone ahead with the title only to find out at the last minute that I didn't have enough E's or enough of a letter. So just make sure you have enough. And we'll do a uppercase A. Once I like the way the title looks, I'll go ahead and push it down, and at that point I will dot my I's and cross my T's. So there you have the title. So here's a layout that uses the Stampin' Up! Pattern paper, some tools, as well as one of their stamping kits. Be sure to subscribe to the Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of these video tutorials.